David. Hey y'all, today we're talking about the Chinon 3000, Auto 3001. The Chinon Auto 3001. The Auto 3001 is a 1997 autofocus camera by the camera company Chinon. Chinon is responsible for a lot of sort of strange, innovative products. They made a lot of SLRs that were, and other products that were rebadged for other brands. The 3001 has been rebadged as the Review 900AF Multi, as well as the Kodak S1100 XL, and that Kodak has the sort of the Kodak style of point and shoot pop-up flash that they liked, as opposed to this flash that's built into the body here. 3001 has a clamshell design. It makes it easy to turn on and off. It has a 35mm f2.8 lens. And if you don't have a frame of reference, this might look like a pocketable camera, but as you can see, compared with an SLR body, not really much smaller, certainly not pocketable. So this doesn't really exist in the same realm as let's say your big minis or Olympus Muse and whatnot. It's quite a bit bigger than those. The 35mm lens on the 3001 focuses down to 0.6 meters, which is reasonable considering the compact nature of the lens. It does have a focus lock half press. The minimum shutter speed comes out a little bit fast at 1/45 of a second, and the fast shutter speed is about standard at 1/250th of a second. So no long exposures with this camera. It has a CDS meter and it's center weighted in the viewfinder. It does have a 10-second self timer and film speeds from 50 to 1600 with auto DX reading. A small flash with a guide number of 7.5. It's always on unless you hold the no flash button. And it's powered by a 2CR5 battery, which is a fairly expensive cell. So that's something to take into account. Okay, let's have a closer look. As I mentioned, the clamshell door turns the camera on. So no button, no on-off switch. That is much preferred. All around, it's a blocky kind of body. And something about Chinon, they're great at making these little dimples for your fingers all around the body. And it has a nice grip on the front here, nice finger grip. Another dimple there on the front. So it's very nice to hold camera. I think the ergonomics of this camera are really excellent. As stated before, of course, we have a 35mm f2.8 lens, which was competitive at the time. There were lots of other great compacts that had a similar lens in them. You see the word multi-focus emblazoned on the front because they want to make a big deal out of the special autofocus system, which uses 3 infrared sensors, I believe, in this. So yeah, that's kind of what that's about. In practice, it doesn't seem to be that different from a lot of other autofocus cameras. On the top, so we've got the LCD display and shutter release. The shutter button is not bad here. It's not a gummy, it's a hard plastic button. It has a decent half press on it. And yeah, it does. It's not easy to accidentally trip the shutter here. It's a pretty good shutter button. It's not annoying. Self timer, fill flash, and of course your little rewind thingy there. And here we have an important button. It's the flash disable button. So when taking a photo and you don't want to use flash, then you just hold this button and it fires without flash. Otherwise, the camera is automatically in auto flash mode, so if it needs to fire the flash, then it will. Looking on the back, nothing too unexpected. And we have a pretty nice size viewfinder here. Not massive, but it's pretty good. It's a pretty good size viewfinder, especially for the size of camera it is. So no complaints there. And we have the confirmation lights, and there's also a macro mode confirmation where it shows you which focusing mode you're in, either macro or the normal focusing mode, which it switches to automatically. And on the back as well, the only button we have is the Spot AF button, which is, I don't know, nice. That's a nice feature to have on a point-and-shoot camera, and relatively uncommon. But that's it. Pretty simple camera. Keep in mind as we take a look at these shots, my process is not geared towards super high resolution. These are going to be pretty grainy and not the sharpest, so it probably doesn't best reflect the ability of this lens, but that's just kind of what I shot with, so that's what I got. First shot is on an overcast day, so we could probably expect that the lens was not wide open, but perhaps it was a f4 or f5.6, where it can be expected to have reasonably good performance. In the central portion of the image, we can see that it does look pretty decent, or perhaps what we would expect from such a lens. Something we should probably also expect is in the periphery there being some smudginess and distortion, which is what we see here, although it's mostly in the extreme periphery of the frame. And the vignetting seems like it's not too bad. With this image, we have a night shot with flash, and what we see in focus is reasonably sharp, although there's probably a bit of camera jitter, and of course there is subject movement, so it's not a terribly sharp shot, but we do see how the flash performs at kind of a mid-distance, and we see probably a bit of a weakness in the flash pattern where it is illuminating the subject enough, but it's just not putting enough flash on it to outright freeze the subject. But overall, despite the jitteriness of it, the image holds together. And again, we don't see too bad vignetting, and it's even exposed decently towards the background. In this third image, we're again seeing that essentially the image quality is pretty good, or as good as we could expect given the developer and film used, which by the way is an I believe 80 speed film, so it's quite a slow film. So this shot is on a dark street, not much light, not much ambient light coming from the street lamp, The minimum shutter speed of 1/45th of a second is just not going to cut it here, especially when using a slow film. And you can see that the background is extremely underexposed, and we just have a poor balance of ambient light and flash. So this is kind of what you're going to get in terms of night shots out of this camera. And furthermore, I don't believe it really locked onto his face very well. You don't have that many focus zones with this camera, so it's just that kind of camera where it has a few focus zones. It doesn't focus that fast in the dark, and you're probably not going to get sharp faces with this camera at all, even in the daytime, because it's just the focus zones are just too coarse. So I found the performance here really disappointing and frustrating, where I was trying to get some shots in the situation, and I couldn't even get the shutter to fire because it just wouldn't lock on under these dim street lamp conditions. So, I've used other cameras that are even older, and they are able to get a good focus lock even in low light. So, not really impressed here. After putting a couple of rolls through the 3001, I find it's kind of middling kind of usefulness. I love the design of it. I love not having an on button or even on switch, and it's not too big a camera. But I find I was kind of expecting more of the camera because it says multi-focus on it, and I suppose I expected it to have a more impressive autofocus system, when really in low light a lot of other cameras can do much better than this camera. It was really pretty unreliable, and add to that the fact that the limited range of shutter speed means that you have to shoot a fast film in it. You can't do long shutter speeds with this camera. Overall, very simple, not a lot of features here. It's nice to have focus lock. That's not always a given with compact cameras, but it's very well implemented here. It's easy to shoot with no flash. You just have a button that you hold down. So it's a very easy, intuitive camera to shoot. It's not a pain in the butt. So as a daytime shooter, it would be great. The autofocus is going to do just fine, although it's still not going to be that precise. There are other cameras that have far more focus zones. But for what it is, it's pretty good, and the lens is a good performer. Probably not going to be up there quite with the Mu2 lens and things like that, and those really coveted compact cameras, but it's capable of pretty good results. So overall, I don't find it that useful for the reasons I've mentioned. It might be useful to you, but for me, I want a camera that I can really drag the shutter with and kind of get creative with. This is, to me, really a little too restrictive. I like to shoot slow film, and this is just not going to expose, simply put, in the dark at night. So yeah, a little bit of a sleeper camera. Probably try to pick one up if you can get one for cheap. You might really like it. It might become your favorite compact camera. Overall, a pretty respectable and unique camera from Chinon. So that's all for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and visit my Instagram, laser spelled with Z, words separated by underscores, and have a great day. Thanks for watching.